TV. This program is brought to you by Rogers Xfinity, connecting you to more of what you love. Visit Rogers.com for more details. The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers Cable or Rogers TV.
Hello, and welcome to the 2025 federal election debate for the riding of Oshawa. My name is Steve Conaby, and I'm here representing the Greater Oshawa Chamber of Commerce. I also have an acute interest in this event, as I am a local business owner. Compute is an IT services company which helps to secure and support many local businesses in the GTA, Durham, and Kawartha regions. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that the Greater Oshawa Chamber of Commerce catchment area is situated on the traditional lands of the Mississauga of Scugog First Nations and rests within the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe. This area is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. These lands are covered under the Williams Treaty, and as settlers on these lands, we are all treaty people. Let us respectfully honor the knowledge and understanding of the Indigenous stewards who have cared for the land and the waterways from the beginning. As settlers, we are grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all the generations of peoples who have cared for this land for thousands of years. The Greater Oshawa Chamber of Commerce would like to thank our co-producers of this event, the Central Lake Association of Realtors, and Rogers for broadcasting this debate and making it accessible to the entire constituencies. I will now introduce our candidates here today. To my left, your right, is Sara Labelle, Oshawa riding candidate for the NDP. And to my right, your left, is Isaac Ramson, and he is the candidate for the Liberal Party. Also invited was the Conservative Party candidate, Rhonda Kirkland, and the Green Party candidate, Catherine Mathewson. Both declined due to scheduling conflicts. Now, for the rules. The format of this forum will be a question and answer format, with each candidate taking turns going first. Each candidate will have 2 minutes as an opening statement and 3 minutes as a closing statement. Each question will be asked of each candidate, and candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to the questions. There will be no rebuttals unless one candidate directly critiques another. Rebuttals will be 30 seconds only and at the discretion of myself, the moderator. A yellow card, shown off stage, will announce that there is 30 seconds left in your answer. A second yellow card will announce that there is 10 seconds left in your answer. A red card will announce that time is now up. In a random selection, also known as a coin toss beforehand, we had a selection of who would go first and who would go last for the opening statements and the closing statements. So it was selected that Sara would go first in the opening statements. So in your opening statements, please tell us your personal vision and a little bit about your party's platform for Oshawa. We ask that during this initial statement, you try to make no mention of other parties or any other people, but tell us a little bit about yourself and your party. Sara.
Okay. Thank you very much to the Chamber of Commerce for putting on this debate. I am so pleased to be here participating in democracy, and I know it's time away from your families when you do this work, so I appreciate it. I have lived in Oshawa for over 21 years. I am a medical laboratory technologist, and I've been delivering public healthcare services in this community for 22 years. I love the work that I do, and I spend all of my time in my working life advocating for access to better health care and to all public services. The social determinants of health care make a huge difference as to the people that we see coming into our hospital and needing access to services. Those are one of the main reasons why I'm standing here today and putting my name forward to run for the next MP for Oshawa. We have an opportunity in this election where we can send someone to Ottawa who's going to fight for this community, someone who has a proven track record of doing that every single day in this community, from fighting to keep good jobs when General Motors was going to pull out in 2019, to fighting for better access to services in this community, fighting for the environment and trying to stop the methanol plant from going in our waterfront. Those are all things that I've been doing in this community every single day, fighting to make sure that the most vulnerable in society have access to public services. We see every single day that some of the most vulnerable people are working at the poverty line or have no access to services. Public services are the great equalizer. We can send someone like Ed Broadbent, who fought for this community from 1968 until 1990, and he fought to make sure that we all had a better standard of living in Oshawa, and that's what I want to do. Under the NDP and all of their policies, we have an opportunity to make life more affordable, to build more houses, to increase public services so everybody has access, transportation, investing in technology, and I would like to do that for Oshawa.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. Isaac, your turn.
Sure. Well, good afternoon. I'm Isaac Ramson. I'm your Liberal candidate for Oshawa. I'd like to thank the Chamber for having me here today. It's a great pleasure to join Sara as well. It's always interesting when you get into these sorts of forums to discuss the future of a city like Oshawa. And for me, this election is really about drawing on my experience working in government and now in the private sector, working with decision makers and governments across Canada, which will provide me with the opportunity to hit the ground running if elected as your MP. In this election, I'm running because I believe Mark Carney is the right person for the job. We've gone through a lot together over the years, and these challenging circumstances require a steady hand at the helm. And that's why I believe that the Liberal Party and Mark Carney are the right choice for Oshawa. Now, as we proceed into this election and we take a look at the city, the things that we enjoy here, the amenities, the work opportunities, the community events, all of this is under threat, as is our national sovereignty. And I very much believe that it's time that we get back to basics here in Oshawa. And what I mean by getting back to basics, it's having representation that's going to listen to you, that's going to return your phone calls, that's going to be present in the community, that's going to sit down regardless of your political affiliation and listen to what you have to say, and make sure that you're heard and that you're given the honest truth about what's going on. For far too long, that's been missing here in Oshawa. So I look forward to the debate today and discussing some of the ideas and discussion topics that have been put forward.
Great. Thank you, Isaac. Now on to the question and answer portion of the debate. The first topic will be around the economy. Canada is currently grappling with economy-wide inflation, low investment levels, and an uncompetitive economic environment. Many Canadians say they're working harder, but they're taking home less. These challenges demand serious solutions to promote sustainable growth and shared prosperity. The following question addresses issues with the goal of understanding your party's plan to ensure growth and prosperity. First question, and Isaac, you will go first.
Sure.
What specific tax reforms would you advocate to make Canada more competitive globally, particularly regarding the digital services tax and the capital gains tax?
Well, I think we have a fundamental problem before we even look at taxation. I think one of the issues that we have is any business person will tell you you're looking for a stable business environment. And right now we don't know what that is. It seems to change by the hour, by the day. The next morning we wake up to new news. And without any sort of certainty, it's very difficult to understand what tax levers you're going to pull in order to quickly provide relief to businesses or provide those adjustments in order to attract more investment. But I think if you're going to speak to small and medium-sized businesses in Oshawa, the people that are employing a lot of people in the city, they're going to tell you that these levers probably aren't the specific ones they're looking for. If they're looking for relief as a result of tariffs south of the border or instability, we need to be looking at broader tax measures that just don't specifically focus on these two specific levers. So I would say this, we need to have certainty, we need to have understanding. The tax system can be an excellent way to find adjustments in the economy and do things quickly for businesses. But for those businesses that are hurting today, these are probably not the levers that they're looking for at this particular time.
Thank you, Isaac. Sara, Same question.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about taxes, because we can't talk about taxes without talking about the services that taxes provide. And one of the things that I've heard knocking on doors over and over and over again in this community from the first day, I have heard that people want access to public services, and that does require taxation. So most people want fair taxation, not that, you know, rich corporations can take advantage of tax havens, that corporate tax cuts are what we are going to be giving out while people are waiting for access to public services that we need to invest in. We need to respect tax dollars. Over and over and over again, we have seen conservative governments and liberal governments at both provincial and federal levels who have invested in public-private partnerships that have cost us 3 or 4 times the amount if we had invested in that ourselves. So there is an opportunity. And you know, when we're talking about Canada's global competitiveness, there are a lot of pieces of information that we can access that tell us that we are doing well among many. Can we do better? Yes. But we are the second best country in the G20 for doing business throughout the next 5 years. And it is we have been consistently ranked among the top 10 countries in the last 5 years. That's from the Economist Intelligence Unit from November 2024. Among the G20 countries, Canada ranks 3rd with respect to the ease of starting a business. This is from the GEM Consortium Global Entrepreneurship Monitor Global Report 2024. Canada ranks 5th among G20 countries in terms of the least complex jurisdiction for conducting business. TMF Group's Global Business Complexity Index, June 2024. All of the information that is out there is telling us that we have a strong opportunity for businesses to invest, but our biggest challenge is ensuring that our companies in Canada, that we are investing in those companies, that the labor force is Canadian.
All right.
And fighting tariffs.
There we go.
Sorry.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sarah. All right. Next question. This time, you're going to go first, Sarah, if that's okay.
Yes.
How would you balance the need to reduce government spending while maintaining critical public services and infrastructure?
You're going to detect a trend as we have these conversations. We need to maintain critical public services and infrastructure. We all know that. And we have to make some significant investments in deficits that we have seen across the country, in healthcare, in education, and these are all provided through, you know, transfer payments from the federal government. That needs to continue. When it comes to government spending, we are at the bottom of the middle of the G20 countries and our European counterparts. So there is room for us to look at how we spend the money more responsibly by ensuring that we're investing in our people, in a smart labor force, that we are investing in public services, that we are not privatizing life labs, for example, and many other private labs across the country. When there was a study that was done in the mid-2010 to 2018, there was a study done in Ontario alone. For every dollar that we were investing in our public labs in hospitals, we were spending $1.50 to provide that same service in a private lab. So there are a lot of opportunities for us to expand the public services, save money, and invest in the things that matter to everybody here in Oshawa and across the country, which is investing in the environment, in infrastructure, in good jobs in our economy, in public services that everybody relies on. Public services in Canada deliver $80,000 in extra money to every single household a year. In most households, that is more than their income a year. And in the average household, it is an extra income. So we have to invest in those areas. And it's not that we need to reduce spending. We just need to spend it where it needs to go to provide best return on the dollar for everybody in Oshawa and in Canada.
Thank you, Sarah. Isaac, same question.
Yeah, so I think this is an interesting question. We're at a really interesting time where we're faced with existential threats to our economy, to our sovereignty, and we're going to have to build big things. And that means taking risks, and that means taking a look at what sort of big projects we're going to invest in. And spending doesn't necessarily mean we go into deficit. It doesn't necessarily mean that we should be afraid of it. As long as we're investing in projects that are going to bring a return to our economy and create jobs, especially for people here in Oshawa. You know, we talk about reducing government spending. I've never met a government that isn't looking for efficiencies or looking at better ways of providing services to people, and that's the role of government. And so I don't feel the need to stand here today to say that we're looking for any sort of major changes to what we're doing, but rather we need to stay the course and continue to invest in critical infrastructure that's going to help move people, goods, services, and create a good environment for business here in Oshawa to create jobs.
Thank you, Isaac. Next question. Isaac, you'll go first on this one, if that's okay.
Yep.
Would you support legislation to modernize the Red Tape Reduction Act, including a one in, two out policy? Why or why not?
Well, I mean, I guess you can wrap this up in a slogan. I'm not sure it does any good. But what I would say here is that regulations are important. They protect people. They ensure that the system is working for them. And we move on and we evolve, and we always have to take a look at redoing our regulations. I think right now a lot of people would be looking for regulations and new technologies such as privacy or AI, or, you know, for people who are flying, they probably appreciate the regulations that are in place for those things, but getting other regulations at that expense is not an appropriate response. I think it's appropriate to review dated regulations to create a better economic environment for investment. I think it's appropriate to cut red tape so we can build more homes. I think it's important that we cut red tape so people have access to the services that they need. I think it's important that we cut red tape so that people can get to the correct points with their government to ensure that they have the opportunity to benefit in this great country and in this city. So for me, I think this question is somewhat flawed in its premise in the sense that regulations are not necessarily a bad thing, but we need to make sure we're regulating the right environments.
Perfect. Thank you, Isaac. Sarah, same question.
Yeah, and I don't disagree what my colleague has said there, who, you know, is standing for election. That, you know, slogans are not strategies for solving the problems that face us right now. And, you know, no one would disagree that outdated regulations should probably be looked at and reviewed and removed if they are outdated. Nobody thinks that barriers and obstacles that don't keep up with the times should continue. But we do know that health and safety regulations and protections for workers are important. That's why we have regulations. We can reevaluate and review, but not in an arbitrary way under a slogan of one in, two out, without ensuring safe communities are a priority. You know, I'm a lab technologist by profession, so we diagnose a lot of illnesses depending on where you work. And many of my colleagues who worked in Ontario during Walkerton under Mike Harris's cuts, conservative cuts, it was a red tape disaster. People died because we cut corners and regulations were not enforced. There is a reason for regulation. And most recently, I look at the pandemic and what we came out of. At Lakeridge, where I work, we took over management of Orchard Villa, one of the worst actors during the pandemic in long-term care. It was a private home. There were no standards and regulations. We need to have national standards and regulations. Almost 4,000 people died in long-term care that didn't need to die. If we had enforced and had national standards, if we had enforced those standards, if we had made sure that municipal homes were running these houses rather than private operators who just want to cut corners so that they can save money off of the people that they are supposed to be caring for, then we are better off as a society. And I won't forget what happened at Orchard Villa, and I won't forget that the solution has been for, you know, the federal government to not implement national standards in long-term care.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, we're going to move on to a related topic, but slightly different, speaking more about the global economy and international relations. Canada's national and economic security are at risk due to increasing reliance on other countries, the departure of key industries, and a lack of adaptability to fast-changing global conditions. These vulnerabilities must be addressed to protect our sovereignty and future stability. These following questions will address these issues with a goal to understand how your parties plan to secure Canada's national and economic security. First question, and in this category, Sarah, you will go first. How would your party approach increasing investments in Canada's energy sector? And what role should the government play in expediting resource project approvals?
Thank you. This is like a very important question and very opportune moment to have a conversation about things that, you know, as a labor activist and a union activist fighting for good jobs, we have been all fighting for a very long time, and that we are investing in our economy and our workers, that we are not outsourcing things to other countries to deliver in Canada what we can do ourselves. Everywhere we look, we know we are going to need more energy to build affordable homes, infrastructure, transportation, technology, and innovation. We are resource rich, but we also have responsibilities in Canada. We need to do this well and sustainably for future generations. When government leaders threaten to run roughshod over Indigenous rights and Indigenous lands, we are not going to be successful in speeding up the process. All of the partners have to be at the table. First Nations, government, at all levels, provincial, federal, and municipal need to work together and collaborate to ensure not just that we're fulfilling our legal obligations in procurement, in extraction, in investing and increasing our energy sector, but that, you know, all partners need to be involved so that we can do it well and do it for everyone's benefit. We have a prime example of, you know, a success story of CANDU Monarch that, you know, is a nuclear reactor that, you know, Bruce needs to refurbish. So we have an opportunity here where we can procure a made in Canada by a unionized workforce in Canada, a refurbishment and the technology and the equipment that can be made here, but yet Bruce Power, which is a private company, is looking at an American producer. So here's an opportunity where the government can show leadership, federally, working provincially, and with our municipal counterparts, that those kind of procurement projects will be done only with investments in Canadian steel and products. Thank
you, Sarah. Isaac, same question.
Sure. As many people know, you know, the energy sector here in Durham region and Oshawa employs thousands of people. It's a key employer. People depend on OPG for good jobs and for supporting their families and supporting the community. You know, we need to work in partnership with the provinces, the territories, and our Indigenous communities. You know, especially on these major projects, and we need to work with the premiers to remove barriers to get these projects up and off the ground. You know, increasing investment will be really important, and to do that, we need to reduce red tape, and we need to ensure that the economic plans are in place with willing partners in these sectors. A Mark Carney-led government will look at this closely and ensure that we directly support clean energy and critical mineral development, accelerate exploration, extraction of these, and while creating good jobs, and at the same time, looking at our circular economy to ration resources, and to recycle appropriately. These are all key parts of developing a clean energy economy, and something that a Liberal government is committed to if elected in the coming weeks. Furthermore, I think we need to increase our capacity to work with Indigenous communities and engage on projects to early and consistently. And this will include funding of $40 million per year for Indigenous capacity to engage on projects that are of importance to Canadians' energy infrastructure, and to ensure that we work with proponents in provinces and territories and our Indigenous partners to proactively remediate and rehabilitate the work that is done. So I think there's a strong plan put in place by the Liberal government, and I look forward to the next question, Steve.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Isaac. For the next question, you'll go first, so we'll alternate this one again here. Do you support Canada's meeting the NATO commitment of 2% defense spending? And how would you ensure those funds directly strengthen our national security?
Yes, the answer is yes. Liberal government is committed to meeting our 2% funding commitment by 2030. And in doing so, this looks to raise from what it had previously been at 1.4%, and the previous government before the Liberals that had it stagnant at 1%. And so in doing so, we need to ensure that our national shipbuilding strategy continues to move forward, which employs over 21,000 people in Canada, and that we continue to provide our troops with the resources they need to succeed. This is an area that we must do with existential threats from Russia and China and ensure that we have our NATO partners on side and we equip our forces with up-to-date equipment and the resources they need, whether it be mental health, more pay, health services, so they can succeed in their work. I think, when we look at our armed forces today, we also need to make sure that they're ready for the future. And that means investing and creating a first-in-class drone capability that will help protect our borders and keep our country sovereign.
Perfect. Thank you, Isaac. Sara, same question.
Same question, and the answer is yes. We do know that we are under a threat, both foreign and what we thought was our most trusted ally, and it's a threat to us. We will never be the 51st state. I think most of us have been very clear about that. And we will increase spending by no later than 2032 to the 2%. But we will also make sure that the emphasis is on making investments that support Canadians, communities, and those who are serving in the Canadian Armed Forces and veterans. That includes the commitment to build 5,000 new affordable houses to end the military housing shortage. The world is less safe and predictable today than it has been for decades. And Canadians expect our military to be capable of protecting Canadians at home and contributing to a safer and more peaceful world. And we have left the Canadian Armed Forces workers behind. If we are procuring equipment, if we are procuring jets, that should be done with Canadian businesses putting bids in and making sure that we own the control of software and hardware operations upgrades. New defense spending also has to ensure that we are protecting the Arctic sovereignty by building new marine research and rescue stations. We need to ensure that we are enhancing the capacity of the Canadian Rangers, ensuring that they are properly compensated and reimbursed in a timely manner for the use of their own equipment. We have to keep them safe, and providing health care and mental health care to CAF's members and veterans has to happen. We need to include investment in northern communities and working together with Indigenous, First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities. We need to improve health care for those that are delivering these services. We need to ensure that we are first and foremost making investments in Indigenous people in Arctic and territorial communities.
Great. Thanks, Sara. All right, for this next question, Sara, you're going to go first in the alternating fashion. What is your plan to improve Canada's energy independence and protect Canada from foreign threats to our economic and geopolitical stability?
Well, this is kind of a continuation of the little bit of the discussion about energy earlier. I had mentioned that we have, an opportunity here in Canada to actually invest in companies that are, 85% Canadian content, which is the Can-Do Monarch, that we can support Canadian unionized workers, that this is an example of a success story, and that we need to show leadership and have standards, targets, and goals to make sure that all energy projects that we are investing in and energy opportunities, innovation, are all Canadian supply chains, that they are Canadian workers, that the products are being built here, that we are using our steel to, do the work that we need to do to invest in the energy sector, the workforce, that, there are opportunities here. During the pandemic, we saw some real innovation that, the private sector engaged in across the world, and including in Oshawa, where when there was a threat and people weren't able to work at General Motors, they retooled and built masks. So we have an opportunity here where we had a really robust manufacturing sector across this country that we can now have conversations about protecting the Canadian workforce by investing in those strategies to increase our energy independence and protect Canadians from foreign threats. If we are reliant completely on ourselves to deliver these goods and Canadians to do the work, then we are going to protect ourselves and insulate ourselves from geopolitical instability.
Great. Thanks, Sara. Isaac, same question for you.
Yeah, I'm not sure I necessarily agree with the premise of the question. I think Canada already has strong energy independence. We produce a considerable amount of nuclear power. We have our hydro system. We produce fossil fuels that are not only used here but around the world. It's a matter of the strategies that we look at to continue to develop these. And so when looking at this from my perspective and from our party's perspective, we need to continue to make these key strategic investments in our communities. We need to continue to look at ways at building east and west across the country to bring this country together and to create critical infrastructure that is going to move energy and create an east-west corridor for electricity across Canada. So I think that while we have a lot of great success stories, we need to continue to build on that success. And that's one of the problems that Canada has. We sit here a lot and we talk about new ideas and we talk about new things in these debates. But the fact of the matter is, Canada has a really good problem. We're sometimes too successful at what we do, and this is one of the sectors that we have been very, very good at and very, very efficient at for a long time, and being a world leader. And so in saying that, the Liberal Party is committed to continuing making these investments, to continue to build this infrastructure, to continue to move us forward during these uncertain times. This will create jobs, it will stimulate the economy, and it will ensure that we're more independent.
Thank you, Isaac. All right, moving on to the next topic. This is going to cover off supply chain, infrastructure, and trade. Canada's supply chains are suffering due to outdated transportation infrastructure and a patchwork of conflicting regulations that hinder trade within our own borders. As a result, Canada is seen as an unreliable trading partner, which impacts our economy and global reputation. The following questions address these issues with the goal of understanding your party's plan to help ensure reliable supply chains and trade. Isaac, this category, you go first. Question would be, how would you prioritize investment in Canada's transportation infrastructure, such as road, rail, ports, to improve the reliability of our supply chains?
Yeah, first I would just say I don't think Canada is an unreliable trading partner. I think Canada is a very reliable trading partner. I think we have a lot of things that the world needs, and we ship those effectively and efficiently across our rail and road networks and through our ports in Canada. But that doesn't mean we don't need to make more strategic investments in these key pieces of infrastructure in Canada. Liberal government is committed to continuing these investments of upwards of $5 billion, which could attract another $10 billion in private investment to help build roads, airports, terminals across this country to ensure that we can ship goods across new supply chain routes to ensure that we can open more trade with new trading partners. We already have existing agreements with countries across the world. This includes in the Pacific, in Europe, in the South, past the United States. And so as we look to these new partners, as we look to facilitate new relationships, we need to build the infrastructure that's going to help. And that's why Liberal government is committed to strengthening these trade routes and strengthening this infrastructure so we can continue to grow on the success we already have. I truly believe that Canada is one of the best places to live in the world. And I don't buy the premise that we're failing at things. We are a product of our own. We have too many problems as a result of our success, not problems for a lack of doing things. And so respectfully, I have to disagree with that question, but look forward to ensure that we can continue to make these key strategic investments to move our economy forward during these uncertain times.
Thank you, Isaac. Sarah, same question
Thank
over to
you. Yes, and so for anybody who's watching this who maybe wants to invest in Oshawa or maybe doesn't live in Oshawa and maybe thinks it would be a great place to relocate, we have an international deep water shipping port. We have a rail spur connecting the Great Lakes to Cross Canada Rail. We have the 401 corridor and an airport. So give us a call if you have an idea and want to be a part of Oshawa and Canada's future. And infomercial aside, we do have great opportunities here. Roads, rails, ports. We must have investment in transportation and infrastructure, but the dollars have to go further than they have been with conservative and liberal, provincial and federal obsession with public-private partnerships. International financial consortia should not be making construction decisions for our country. Supply chains are not only about the movement of goods, though we do want to improve that. Supply chains are the manufacture of and designing of and innovation. When a small company is looking for an assembly line that can be retooled to make their goods here instead of the States, when a company is looking for a distributor to help them get their goods to market, they need help. And this is where there's an opportunity for the federal government, the provincial government, municipal, and the business community, like the Chamber of Commerce, to help us deliver on the needs that our community has and the business community has here. It has to be collaborative. We all need to work together to support the initiatives that we want to take on so that we can tariff-proof our economy and thrive, and everybody can take a part of ownership in Oshawa and building a better and stronger economy and public services for all of us.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, now on to some interprovincial trade discussion. So, Sara, on this question, you'll go first. What concrete steps would you take to eliminate interprovincial trade barriers and promote true free trade within Canada?
Well, that's a good question. There's a lot that we can do, but it's going to be similar to the question about red tape. Again, we don't need unnecessary or needless hurdles in the way of interprovincial trade. We want businesses to grow. We want goods to move. We want ideas to blossom. We want jobs to be created. But we also need to show leadership in the federal government. All of the provinces need to work together purposefully so that everyone benefits. That we have to ensure that health and safety standards are met. In Ontario, we have many cranes. There's been a boom in building in condos across, the GTA and including out this way. We need crane operators to do that, and we train them at Durham College. But none of it may not have the same needs, so they may not have the same standards for crane operation. So when we are talking about eliminating barriers, it's not going to be that we lower our standards to the lowest common denominator. We're going to make sure that those standards are in place. We're going to make sure that we are protecting the workforce through mechanisms to get products across this country. We're going to make sure that the workforce is able to move across this country by making sure that licensing for skilled professionals, I work in healthcare. We have a lot of need for recruitment and retention. We know that the skilled trades we need to make sure that they are licensed and able to work across the country, and that people that are newcomers to Canada are able to get credentialed. And that will help with all of the eliminating some of the barriers and making sure that we are prioritizing our country and trade across our country before anywhere else.
Thank you, Sara. Isaac, same question, interprovincial trade.
Well, the good news is we're already on pace to do this under a Liberal government and Prime Minister Mark Carney. He's been very explicit about this, and the government has been very explicit about the fact that we need to create one Canadian economy, not 13. An economy where businesses can sell their products and when and where they please, which will help stimulate more economic growth, especially in cities like here in Oshawa. I do agree with my counterpart here that these barriers that come down will help to open up new opportunities for workers and create seamless trade and credentials across various provinces. I would say this, though, that while we bring down these trade barriers, we can't lose sight of the fact that we need to diversify our trading partners abroad as well. We have many, many opportunities across the Atlantic and across the Pacific to bring Canadian goods that are made here in Oshawa to new markets, to create jobs here that are stable and well-paying. And so while it is fine and good for us to move forward on this, we have to be firing on multiple fronts to help create good jobs for people here in Oshawa and in Canada.
Thank you. All right, now on to our last question of this category. Isaac, you'll go first. Maybe next time I'll switch it up, so I'll give you guys a few seconds. I know the cadence here is keeping on your toes, that's for sure. That's how can Canada better position itself as an international trading partner on the global stage while increasing economic resiliency at home?
Yeah, I think we're already well positioned. Anybody who's in business who does trade abroad in Canada knows that we're a trustworthy trading partner. We have lots to offer the world, and we do that already. So I think here what we're looking at is we need to start to look at forming these new relationships abroad, while at the same time focusing on our existing relationship in the States. Whether we want to admit it or not, it will remain a significant trading partner for Canada. We need to continue to work to understand what that business climate is going to be like so that businesses can continue to sell and move product into that country, which will help sustain our economy as well. Furthermore, the fundamentals are already in place. Trade agreements have been negotiated. We just haven't fully utilized them. I think there's plenty of opportunity for us to be abroad. And as somebody who has worked abroad and traveled abroad, as somebody in business, I can tell you people want Canadian products. We have great agriculture here in Durham region. We create some of the best cars, some of the best automotive parts here in Durham region. Here in Durham region in Oshawa, we have some of the best products that are made by local producers that are exported abroad. And so I think there's plenty of opportunity here. People know that Canadians are tenacious. We're always working in the shadow of our U.S. partners, and we work hard, and we get the job done. And I don't think there's an issue here of trustworthiness. It's about how do we take advantage of the opportunities that already exist, that we've created and forged for ourselves over the past number of years.
Thank you, Isaac. Sara, same question.
Yeah, and I agree. We are a trustworthy trading partner. I think we have proven that with our relationship south of the border year after year after year until we elected someone who, on the whim, what day they get up or how they're feeling that day, they are deciding that they're going to impose tariffs on a country that has been very trustworthy, has been a good neighbor. We are the nation of gander. That's who we are. That's how people know us in the global stage, that we bring people in, we take care of them, that we are there in people's worst time of need, that we stand up. We have, joined wars to defend other countries' democracies long before other countries did. So I think we are a trustworthy global partner. Increasing economic resilience, though, again, this comes down to what we have seen in globalization and, what we have seen in companies that want to make higher profits, large corporations, that they offload and take their manufacturing to other countries that have violations of human rights and pay people a pittance. I think we can all agree that we want to make sure that the products that we are using in Canada, that the products that we are manufacturing pays a decent living, and that we're not relying on companies that pay people $20 a month, or maybe $200. So increasing economic resilience means we manufacture in Canada what we can. We have the best lumber, some of the best lumber. We know this. It's better lumber than they have in the United States, and they're going to find that out when they try to build homes. But we don't do anything with it. We send it to other countries for them to make it and send it back to us to use 2x4s. We saw in the pandemic, the cost of 2x4s went up astronomically. We can increase our economic resilience if we are using our lumber, if we, open up mills now, because we've closed a lot, if we manufacture furniture. Like, we have some really incredibly talented people in Canada who could get into that business. And that is a way we can increase our economic resilience.
Great. Thanks, Sara. All right, we're going to move on to a different category now. This is going to be about immigration, labor shortages as it relates to taxes as well too. So Canadians are losing faith in their government due to perceived waste, rising taxes, and favoritism. Meanwhile, labor shortages are making key sectors like manufacturing, trades, and resource extraction less competitive. A renewed focus on fairness, efficiency, and workforce development is essential. The following questions address these issues and a goal of understanding how your party's plan is put forward to foster good government and regain the trust of Canadians. As I mentioned, I'll adjust the cadence here. So for this whole category, Isaac, you'll go first, and that way we'll go a little bit back and forth so you won't double up. And for the next category, Sara, you can go first for the entire set of questions, okay? So the first question, Isaac, is what is your strategy for simplifying the tax system so that it is fair and less burdensome for Canadian small businesses?
I think this is a point of frustration for a lot of small businesses. I'm hearing it at the doors, and I think just for hardworking families, the tax system is overly cumbersome. It is not easy to understand. At times it seems overly complex when it doesn't need to be. And we make a real mess of things when we're trying to make it easier for businesses to do what they do best, which is focus on producing their products and delivering their services. For example, the doors, I've been hearing a lot about people who've been filing by paper, and now they're getting dinged with $1,000 if they don't file online. These sorts of things is just CRA getting in the way of people just trying to make a living and trying to run a small business. And so those sorts of things are the things that irk small businesses. They irk, sole proprietors, those that are trying to just make a living. They don't make it easier in our community. And so I would say we need to start with the little things. We need to make it easier for people to understand what CRA is doing in plain language. They often get notices in the mail. They have no idea what they mean. They don't understand the language that's being conveyed to them on the phone. It's a point of frustration for people that don't work in the tax system. And so I would say from a personal point of view, I would heavily advocate that we relook at our tax system, simplify it for people, put it in plain English so they can find things on the CRA website, so they can navigate, so they can understand exactly what is being communicated to them. Because I think for far too many people, especially at this time of the year, for small businesses and individuals who are maybe running a small business on the side or just trying to file their own tax return, they get very, very, very frustrated very, very quickly and end up paying a lot more than they have to when all they're trying to do is just employ some people or make a little extra money to put food on the table. And so I think from that point of view, Oshawa needs a strong advocate to start pushing those ideas into government to make it a lot easier for people to file their tax returns.
Thank you, Isaac. Sara, over to you. Same question.
Yeah, so I'm going to push back a little bit because I think that we don't want to start with the argument that people are losing faith in their government due to perceived waste, rising taxes and favoritism. I think that the talking points that are being used from one leader who is running to be prime minister is a problem. We have people who work in the government who deliver excellent public services in our communities. And when we run down the government, we are running down the workers that provide those services. And I won't do that. On the tax system, yeah, people think it's unfair. I mentioned that earlier. Tax havens for the wealthiest and, corporate tax cuts for the wealthiest is unfair. The people that are paying the biggest burden of taxes are people living at or below the poverty line. They are the ones that not only pay taxes on the money that they make, they pay taxes on goods that they purchase. The bit of relief that people got in January and February where there was, no taxes on essentials and groceries, that was a big deal to a lot of families, and that needs to continue. That needs to be permanent. The people making less need to have a lower tax burden. We need to remove taxes on essentials like internet, cell phones, utilities. Those are things that benefit people. And I understand that the tax system may be confusing, but every single person I've ever talked to understands that taxes pay for public services. And so we do want investment in our country, in ourselves. The public services are part of the economy, and people understand that. And we can do that, but also making it easier for people who maybe aren't as savvy on a computer. Having, community hubs that can help people with those taxes would benefit.
Thank you, Sara. All right, on to the next question. Isaac, you'll go first. How would you reform the immigration system to better align with labor market needs, while ensuring that newcomers can work in their trained professions?
Yeah, I think it's really important to remember that immigration is the foundation of Canada's fabric and our proud history. Anybody who's in this country came from somewhere, and they've been able to benefit from the tremendous opportunity that this country has offered them over the years. New Canadians have fueled our economy time and time again. In the past, they've helped to support our growth. They've addressed critical shortages in labor in our economy, and so we need to be mindful that immigration does have a place in our country, and we need to continue to welcome people to Canada in a way that is measured, and in a way that we can support these people when they come to Canada. We have a real responsibility here to make sure that those social services are there for when people arrive, but at the same time balancing that with ensuring that people who live here already have access to services. And I think that's where some of the frustration exists with people today, is seeing that the system is not quite working the way that it was intended. Again, I go back to this. We have a lot of good problems. We're a product of our success. And part of that is people want to come to our country. They want to live here. They want to do business here. They want to raise a family here. And with that, we need to continue to keep up with growth. We also need to be mindful that, these are creating new pressures on housing, and we need to make those key investments by getting homes built. And that's why Liberal government is committed to building more homes, 500,000 a year, and contributing billions of dollars in new funds to build homes and to reduce red tape, particularly at the municipal and zoning level, to get homes get homes built so that those that are coming here and those that live here can afford a place to live. I see that the yellow card has come up, so I'll stop there.
And we'll have some more time for housing. That's the next topic, so we'll give you an opportunity to speak there. Sara, same question over to you.
All right, thank you. So I mentioned in the beginning that I work in healthcare, and it is no surprise to anybody that we have a huge shortage in healthcare. I mean, I don't think you can open a newspaper or go online, if you happen to have print media left, which we don't have much of that. But if you, go online or you go to your local hospital, you already know that we have a recruitment and retention problem. We have that in skilled trades as well. And the solution is not going to be met just by expecting the existing labor force to meet the needs. We know that many Chamber of Commerces are reporting on numbers of, how many new immigrants they are going to need to fill the labor market shortages. I worked alongside people in the pandemic who did not have permanent resident status, and I wrote letters for some of my colleagues who, delivered services in the worst time possible and saw the most grueling conditions. And they did it because they cared about this country that they moved to, they cared about their neighbors, and they need to be rewarded with fast tracking through immigration and getting permanent resident status. That we will take the time to make sure that people that are in the system currently are reunited with their families, because it's a backlog and a delay. We will make sure that people who come here with their trained professions are able to get licensed in this country. We can no longer wait and have people driving taxi cabs and that is a laudable profession. We need more of those folks as well, but we can't have doctors and engineers doing that. We need them in our healthcare system. We need them working in our businesses in order to help meet the labor market shortages that we are experiencing across the board, not just in healthcare, not just in skilled trades. We're seeing it in social services. We are seeing it in business. We are seeing it in tech. It's across the board, and it is not going to be solved unless we actually invest in ensuring that people are getting permanent resident status here in Canada.
Thank you, Sarah. Next question. Again, we'll turn it over to you, Isaac, to go first in this round. How will you ensure greater government transparency and reduced perceived waste and favoritism that contribute to public distrust?
So I think this is a very far-reaching question, and as somebody who's worked in government for many, many years and seen things come and go and works in the government space today, there's always the challenge of how do you improve these systems? How do you make procurement more transparent, more available, more noticeable for people? And I think we're getting better at this as a country. We've seen many reforms over the years in terms of our procurement strategies and how companies can look to do business with the Government of Canada and its agencies and its corporations. And so from that perspective, I think the government needs to better help people understand when they're going out and looking to undertake these procurement processes, particularly ones where there may only be a handful of suppliers that can actually do what we need, and clearly articulate what those propositions are going to be and what the options are. Today we find ourselves in a situation where we're going to have to go out and do massive procurement. We're going to have to look at building major infrastructure, improving our ports, improving our highway network, improving our rail infrastructure, improving our airports. All this is going to require procurement processes, and they need to be upfront and transparent so we avoid waste and the perception of favoritism or some sort of distrust in the system. But I would say, having worked in this a long time, the people that are doing these processes under immense pressure, there's an immense amount of accountability here in Canada, and we should be very proud of the processes that we already have in place. But it doesn't mean we can't do better. And so I say to those who are listening today and worried about the issue of procurement, let government continue to work and look at face value of what's being offered. And as we move into this next phase of growth in Canada, we will need to do our part to make sure people understand what it is that's going out to market.
Thank you, Isaac. Sarah, same question.
Thank you. So, government transparency, we can do better with that. Yes, I do agree with that. On the reduced perceived waste, I did mention public-private partnerships that, we spend an awful lot of money and they cost more. So we have an opportunity. International consortia should not be making those decisions. It should be made. It should be publicly funded. We should not be selling off our infrastructure, the 407 to a Spanish company. We should not be allowing Grifols, another Spanish company, to open up and do paid plasma in the province of Ontario. So those are all things that have happened currently in this government. So these are things, and previous governments. So these are things that need to stop. But on the issue of reduced perceived waste, I'd like to talk about DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiencies. Elon Musk is making decisions in the United States on what is efficient in government. They have made cuts to the FAA. They have made cuts to the Communicable Diseases Center. They have made cuts to regulations and protections. They have cut federal service workers that deliver services in the country. So when we talk about these things, we need to talk about them in the context of that we are defending the workers that provide these services in our country, that they are not just talking points for someone to attack an existing government for the decisions that they don't like, but that we are providing solutions, that we are saying we're not investing in public-private partnerships because they do cost more, and if the government procures them, if we put those out to tender, if everybody knows what the tendering process is, rather than giving businesses contracts and international companies contracts, that there is actually a procurement process. These are solutions to the problem. But you know, it is not wasteful to invest in the things that we need that provide protections for Canadians. And we need to kind of push back a bit on that notion, because those are talking points that are coming from someone who believes that we should just, you know, dismantle everything that we need as a country.
Thank you, Sarah. Now, there was a reference over to you, Isaac, there, and some of the policies that are at current place, so I will give you an opportunity if you'd like to rebuttal for 30 seconds.
Yeah, I would say, look, government is always looking at better ways of doing things. And I would say the procurement process that exists, not only at the federal government, provincial, municipal government, is very transparent today. But I think when we're facing these existential threats south of the border, we need to remember the system that we have in place is much, much different. There's accountabilities and measures that are there that I think Canadians should be very thankful for. And in doing that, we have a parliamentary system. We have a system that exists to represent people in a way that is direct and close to individuals for accountability. And when things go wrong, we have seen over time that governments face the consequences. But thankfully, we have good transparency and good measures in place today for procurement to ensure that there's a high degree of accountability when we do these things in Canada.
Thank you, Isaac. All right, moving along to our next category. Housing. I know you referenced it earlier, Isaac, and Sarah, you're going to go first for this category for each of the questions. So housing remains one of the most urgent and pressing concerns for Canadians. From first-time homebuyers to low-income families, the housing crisis is affecting people at every stage of their life and across the entire continuum of housing. Rising costs, a shortage of skilled tradespeople, unstable supply chains, and limited affordable housing options are compounding the problem. Addressing this crisis requires leadership, innovation, and coordinated action across all levels of government. In this section, we will explore each candidate's plan to tackle the housing supply and affordability issues within Canada. So, as I said, Sarah, you'll go first. Here's the first question. Housing continues to be top of mind for all Canadians. Amid the housing crisis, what can the federal government do to help the increasing supply issues across the housing continuum in Canada? If elected, what specific measures would your party focus on?
Thank you for this question. So we call it a housing crisis, but a crisis is something that happened all of a sudden we didn't foresee. I mean, this is not something that just happened overnight. It's not like all of a sudden everybody who needed, you know, a roof over their heads just showed up and needed a roof over their heads. This has been ongoing years of underinvestment in the things that we need. Everybody should have a door that they can close at night. Everybody should have access to a roof over their heads. We need to have increased densification. We need building fourplexes as of right along our transit corridors. We need apartments. We need transitional housing. Housing is a human right. Our plan is to build 3 million new homes, including non-market and affordable housing. And we mean true affordable housing. We have international companies and investors who do not live in the country who are driving up prices across this country and making it impossible for people who live in Canada to own homes. We need stronger rent protections because we have to recognize that not everybody wants to own a home or will own a home, but that they need a roof over their heads. We need to stop rent evictions and price gouging. We need to create good jobs and faster construction with Canadian-made materials. And we'll do this by replacing the expiring Liberal Housing Accelerator Fund with a permanent $16 billion national housing strategy made up of the Canadians Homes Transfer and the Communities First Fund. This plan complements previously announced commitments on national rent control, building rent-controlled homes on public land, low-interest loans through the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation. The plan gives cities and provinces the tools to build homes faster, protect affordable rental homes, and fight inflation for families. There are a lot of other things, and I did notice that the Liberal platform has a lot of things that NDP and New Democrats have been talking about for years, and they haven't been done. So now is the time that we can send a strong voice to Ottawa on behalf of Oshawa.
Thank you, Sarah. Isaac, over to you. Same question.
This is a loaded question, Steve.
I didn't write them.
Yeah. Look, you know, I'm a young person. I know there's a lot of young voters out there. I know how hard it is to get into the housing market. And, you know, I think when we look at this issue of housing, you know, there's a lot the federal government can do, but I want to talk a little bit first about just the easy things that we're not doing. And I think we make it very hard for young people in this country to understand the housing market. I think we make it very hard and a scary thing for people to approach and start thinking about. And today, buying a home is not like it was 20 or 30 years ago. Today, it means long-term planning. It means understanding the funds that are there to help save for a home, the ability to pull from other investments so that you can make these decisions about your choice in housing. For those that aren't aspiring to buy a home, they need a roof over their head. Look, I'm the son of a United Church minister. I've spent a lot of time working with people, and I've seen how important housing is and how it can change somebody's life. And it pains me to see in Oshawa people without a roof over their head, particularly today. It is a fundamental right, and people should not be subject to sleeping on the street. We need the different kind of housing, and having worked in municipal government, I know that we can build housing quickly. I know we can work with our local partners to deregulate things like zoning, to reduce development charges, to work to make sure that we get more housing online. And, you know, I think the Creating Build Canada Homes Fund is a great place to start. It will be an unprecedented development of housing across Canada, unlike we haven't seen since the Second World War. And so I think, you know, Mark Carney and the Liberals were proposing strategic investments in housing that will get it online quickly. We will build 500,000 homes a year moving forward, and this will help alleviate many of the pressures that people are feeling, and young home buyers and those that are aspiring to buy a home will have that opportunity here in Canada.
Thank you, Isaac. Well, you both went right to the end there, but we have a few more questions on housing, so you'll have an opportunity to get some more of that information out. Over to you, Sarah. You'll take this question as well. And the first, what steps will your party take to develop a national housing skills agenda that equips Canada's workforce, particularly youth and newcomers, for careers in the skills trades, while also collaboratively working with provinces and industries to address the labor shortages within that housing sector? Sarah, go ahead.
The simple answer to that is that, you know, we need to train at least over 100,000 skilled workers, including newcomers. The challenge in that is many of those trades require apprenticeships. And in a workforce that is stretched, we see it in healthcare and we see it in the trades, that my brother is an electrician. And he did his apprenticeship not in an easy way. He had to push really hard to find someone who would take him on, who had the workforce that could actually provide him the apprenticeship and the skills that he needed, because they are already short. So we need to figure out a way that we can get the newcomers who are already trained and have those skills, that are laborers, that if they're plumbers, if they're engineers, if they are bricklayers, you know, if they are welders, that they actually are able to get into the workforce quickly so that they can also help with the apprenticeships. We need skilled labor. On the issue, we know, of housing, we know that this housing crisis is not something that happened overnight. And we knew it was coming. And, you know, we've had years where it could have been addressed federally. But we are where we are now, and when we're talking about this strategy, we can't just talk about building homes. We need the infrastructure in the communities. We need waste management. We need to ensure that people have access to water. While knocking on doors in a neighborhood on the weekend, they talked about 5 basements on the street were flooded because they did a great big new build, and when they built it, they didn't put the proper basement in. They didn't, you know, put the proper draining in for water flowing downhill, and people's basements were flooded. So we have to talk about all those as in conjunction. It's not just we're going to build more homes and not expect to have all the other infrastructure as well. And it is an opportunity. We need to get the newcomers to Canada in the workforce faster and train new students and laborers.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Isaac, same question.
Yeah, so look, I think a lot of this starts with the fundamentals of how we look at career options here in Canada. For far too long, we've been focused on a pathway to post-secondary education for opportunities that may not include working in the skilled trades. These are good paying jobs. These could be good paying union jobs for people. And we need to provide the resources for people to succeed in these trades. And we don't do a very good job of it right now. And that's why we're providing a new apprenticeship grant of up to $8,000 for registered apprentices. And should that apprentice not finish their program, it will convert into an interest-free loan. This is in addition to the $20,000 interest-free Canadian apprenticeship loans that are already available today for those that are entering the skilled trades. In addition to that, we need to increase increase access to union-led training initiatives, and so we'll be doubling that fund to make sure that people have access to those opportunities, and establishing a new capital building fund stream for colleges to support training spaces is going to be fundamental as we face these housing challenges going forward. In addition to that, for those that are already in the sector and may be impacted by tariffs, we need to look after them during these times so they don't leave the trades. And that's why the government is proposing $15,000 for workers in priority sectors during these difficult times. I also think it's important that we look at mobility. Mobility in the space. A lot of these skilled trade people are not staying on certain sites for periods of time. They're traveling to different sites to do work, and so we need to provide those tradespeople who are going between provinces and territory with the resources they need so that they can go and do those jobs to build housing that we need in this country. And I see a card has gone up, so I will stop there. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Isaac. Last question in this category, and again, it's going to go over to you first, Sarah. How will your party create resilient housing material supply chains that can withstand tariffs and trade barriers?
Thanks. We've been talking a lot about this, and so it's like a lot of the questions I've kind of already answered around different measures. But for around this specific topic, we are going to need to develop a robust Made in Canada procurement strategy. Municipal, provincial, and federal governments, we're going to have to work together. We need to implement procurement strategies that prioritize Canadian-made products and services and bolstering our domestic industries and creating good jobs. I mentioned the example of, mills that we used to have that many have closed down in communities and devastated local communities over the years. So it's an opportunity for the lumber that we have in Canada that, we don't have to pay tariffs if we use it in Canada. And if we have mills that give us those products that we need to build the homes. And those are priorities that we need to make. The workforce has to be a priority in this strategy for building homes and resilient housing to ensure that, when we are shipping products across the country and eliminating barriers, that the workforce is protected, that the standards are in place, that we ensure that collective agreements are respected. We do not need labor disruptions because the government is running roughshod over labor rights or Indigenous rights. Like, those are all things that we need to work collaboratively with First Nations, Métis and Indigenous and Inuit folks in order to develop those strategies along with federal, provincial and municipal government.
Thank you, Sarah.
I didn't get a card that time.
Oh, yeah, no, I know. It's confusing. Yeah, I know.
I'm like,
Isaac, same question over to you.
Well, I think what we're proposing helps address some of these issues that we're looking at. Already we have many of the building materials that we need here in Canada to build homes and to do it quickly, and that's the good news. The thing is we need to provide the demand for those products so we can produce them at a rate which is efficient and attractive for businesses to make those investments to manufacture them. And so what we're proposing in the Liberal plan is to reach 500,000 homes per year, which will improve the housing market for young Canadians. And that will also provide the certainty that for those that are producing things like lumber or cement or brick or stone or whatever materials you may need for the home that you're building, that there is going to be a market for it, which is vitally important. In addition to that, we're proposing prefabricated housing to get more housing online quickly. And again, this will create a stream to understand what the supply needs to be and generate the demand for those home builders and for those that are working within the sector. So the Liberal government is committed to making these investments and creating these frameworks for housing success if elected in the coming weeks.
Thank you, Isaac. All right, well, that concludes the question and answer portion, and we're going to move to our closing statements now. So as mentioned earlier, we flipped a coin. Isaac chose to take the last word, so the closing statements will start with you, Sara. So if you'd like to kick it off, go ahead. 3 minutes, by the way.
3 minutes,
I'll give you a heads up. 3 minutes, and yeah.
And thank you very much for the opportunity to come here and participate in democracy. I wish that we'd, had a full panel here for everybody in Oshawa to hear from all of the parties. Democracy only works if we participate in it. And, I want to thank everybody whose door I've knocked on and the folks that have shared their fears, their concerns, their anxiety, and their dreams in the conversations we've been having at the doors or on the phones. I've heard from many people who are worried about the future for their children. They are worried about paying their bills. They are worried that they're not going to have access to public health care when they need it. And all of these things are important to me. And if elected as your MP, and I'm asking for your vote to be the next MP for Oshawa, because I'm a fighter, and I'm a fighter for my community. I have a proven track record of fighting for Oshawa, for public access to health care, for its supporting Indigenous rights, for ensuring that our community is fair, that we need to stand up against hate, Islamophobia, and homophobia has no home here. We need to stand up for basic human rights for everybody across this country. We need to stand up for health care for all. That includes health care for people who are looking for access to reproductive rights. We need to ensure that women and gender diverse people are not dying like they are south of the border because they can't get access to health care. These are the things that matter. We need to ensure that we declare the opioid crisis a national crisis so that we can fund the resources in this community to deal with the opioid crisis. These are our friends, these are our neighbors, these are people's loved ones that are dying because we are not addressing it. And it starts with housing and transitional housing and access to mental health supports. These things matter. Allowing people the freedom of association matters in collective bargaining. I have stood up for labor rights in this community for over 20 years and across this province. And there is not a government that gets elected in this country that should be re-elected if they're going to run roughshod over labor rights and human rights. And if a government takes the Indigenous communities to court to spend millions of dollars to trample on their rights, they should not have a seat. We have an opportunity to send a strong voice on behalf of Oshawa to Ottawa, someone with a proven track record, someone who lives in this community and knows what it's like in this community, someone who's been knocking on doors and who will be tireless, someone who is passionate about people and caring for people. That's what I've done in the life that I've led in public service as a healthcare worker. And it's what I will do as the next MP for Oshawa. I will represent everybody. Every voice matters, from people who are living and renting or those that are unhoused, to every neighborhood in this community.
Thank you, Sara. Isaac, 3 minutes for your closing statements.
Sure. Well, first, thank you, Steve, and the Chamber for having us here today. I think it's always an important opportunity to speak to people, whatever the form is. That's one of the parts of our democracy which is essential. I don't understand why we're missing some of our counterparts here today, but I would say in these times of uncertainty where we're seeing authoritarianism rise around the world, it is somewhat boggling to me that we aren't having a more open debate with other candidates here in Oshawa today. Like many of you, I think we're all feeling a bit scared right now. We're all feeling a bit uncertain. There's a lot of anxiety about what's going to happen, and I share that fear with you and that uncertainty. And prior to running in this election, I asked myself what I thought maybe I could offer. And somebody who's been in this space a long time, I felt that now it might be the time where I could offer this specific skill set to represent you. You know, I've been around this area a long time. I love this city. I remember coming here as a kid and just enjoying the food, the generals, the concerts, all the things that we really enjoy. But unfortunately, a lot of that is under threat. Our economy today is not what it was a few months ago or a few weeks ago. Our very sovereignty is at risk. And I know I hear it at the doors every day. You'd rather die before becoming the 51st state, and I share that sentiment. But I think there is something we can do today here to start and to bring those concerns forward to Ottawa, and that's getting back to basics. And what I've been sharing with people when I've knocked on doors across Oshawa over the past couple of weeks is that it's time that your local representative starts picking up the phone. That's why I return all my calls and all my texts personally. You can do it today. You can call me at 905-435-6136. I will get back to you. This is fundamental. We need to make sure that we have local representatives that are listening to you, that are going to talk to you regardless of what walk of life you come from or what your political leanings are. It's time to be visible in the community. It's time to be accountable. It's time to have conversations. It's time to have an MP who is willing to sit down and be here with you and understand and take those concerns directly to Ottawa. So, at the advanced polls this week, I ask for your vote. During the special ballots and the mail-in ballots, I ask for your vote. And on April 28th, I ask for your vote. If you're in line with me about bringing basic democracy back to Oshawa, I'd very much like to have your support on April 28th.
Thank you, Isaac. All right, well, that concludes our debate for today. I'd like to thank both of our candidates, Isaac and Sara, for taking time out of your busy campaign schedule. Also like to take this opportunity to thank our co-producers and sponsors, the Central Lakes Realtors Association and Rogers, again, for this broadcast. And want to remind everybody to not forget that on April 28th to tune into Rogers TV at 9:30 p.m. For all of your election coverage. Thank you.
Due to the length of the preceding program, we now join the regularly scheduled program already in progress.
Hi folks, and welcome back to Rogers Seniors Talk with Durham Regional Police. Again, I'm Detective Martin Franson from the Durham Regional Police Service in company of two wonderful people, Sharon and Jacqueline from the Regional Municipality of Durham. And we've been talking about tax time. You know, that sometimes that burden that so many people get stressed out about, it truly isn't really that stressful if you know how to navigate it and you're able to work your way through it. But it is so very important. If you ever have questions about it, you want to get a hold of the CRA directly, 1-800-O-Canada. That is a central switchboard for all the federal government agencies across Canada. 1-800-O-Canada. So easy to remember. When the operator answers, ask them to direct you to the CRA, and they're going to get you to the true CRA so that you can get honest answers about what needs to be done. But you can also, Regional Municipality of Durham,
311.
311. That is one way to get a hold of you folks with your unit, with the older adult support and safety support team. But we can also call 311 for some income tax information. So I want to file my taxes. I'm not sure how to do that.
Okay, Martin, so I'll walk you through it.
Sounds good.
The best that I can, okay? All right, so you can either file your taxes on your own, or you could ask a family member or friend or a tax preparer to help you with that, okay? So you can either do it online and use the certified tax software. You can actually file your taxes over the phone, which is pretty cool. If you want more information about that, canada.ca/simplefile. You can also order a paper copy to file your taxes from the CRA. And then lastly, what we want to highlight and talk about a little bit more about is the tax clinics that are available in the region of Durham. So there are a variety of tax clinics that if you are eligible, it would be free to file your taxes, which is great. So I'll tell you a little bit about what that eligibility looks like. And then Sharon will talk to us a bit about locations across the region where you can access to file your taxes and get help for that. So if you're one person, if you're making $35,000 or less, then you would be eligible for using a free tax clinic. If there's 2 or more people, it's $45,000 combined, and add an additional $2,500 for each additional person in the family. So some organizations actually may modify the amounts, so it's important to reach out just to see what your eligibility is. And what's really important is that it's a simple tax return, because these free tax clinics, typically they're volunteer run, not always, but they have to be simple, and what's simple, it can kind of depend based on each tax clinic. But
it's going to be an individually circumstances driven, right?
Yeah.
And when you say 2, are you talking couples there?
Yeah, it just says 2 people. So whether it's a couple or a person and their, I don't know, common law partner or...
Yeah. Again, you'd want to check that to make sure from the experts who now actually know this stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, it says family size, so I guess it could be you and an adult child as well.
Okay.
If you're an older
That's
adult.
good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, very helpful to know, because you may not be in a situation economically that you can afford to pay what it does cost for the professional organizations that are out there. Very helpful organizations, very good organizations. Do keep in mind, though, I thought something that you brought up was really important. I'm going to go back to it. You can phone in.
Yes.
And through, imagine automation, you're providing the information off the records that you have. I would think that would probably be a simple filing as well. Again, well, you're not sure, give it a try. If it works for you, it works for you. At least you met that date, and that's what's important.
Yes. April 30th.
April 30th.
Yes. The other thing that you said, just to add to that, or just to make note of that, is, ordering the package as well, right?
Yeah.
So Martin, you had talked to us a little earlier before that, in the past people would go to the post office. What happened when you went to the post office?
I used to do that, rush out to the post office, you'd find boxes of them
Just there.
in the envelope. There was and there was a return envelope, and all the forms were inside there. And I went today, they're not there anymore. And little did I discover that if you want one, you have to actually call the government and ask them to mail it to you. You're being encouraged to do it electronically. So again, that could be a little bit of a stress for you, especially if you're not computer savvy, you don't know how to navigate. Very important at this point in time, you might want to reach out to a family member, friend, maybe your grandchild, because the young people who really know how to navigate computers nowadays might know nothing about taxes, but they might be able to navigate.
They know how to work around it.
These clinics that you spoke of.
I want to just point out a couple of them because, there were so many. I was really impressed, right? So first of all, the region of Durham do also have a list, right? So if you reached out and just call like 311, right? And you say, where is the closest free tax clinic for me? I might be on social assistance of some kind, or it might be an ODSP. They'll direct you. Okay, so just 3 numbers, 311, and they'll help you. But there's other places like the Ajax Welcome Center, okay? You can give them a call, you could set up a time. They also have a drop-in, so you might want to find out from them, when is your next drop-in, or do I have to set up a time, and someone will guide you around that. So that's the Ajax Welcome Center. Also CDCD, which is also known as...
Community Council.
Yes.
That was your test for today?
Right. They have the housing tax clinic as well that's available for people. Newcomers to Canada, that's helpful as well, must have the following information. So like what Jacqueline was saying, you need to have an ID, right? Some form of ID. Please bring your ID with you. Or ask, what IDs do I need, and they'll let you know. But
and what's the most important one of all? Social insurance number.
Your social
insurance number. That is the number that is associated to you, and everything that happens here in the income tax world is associated back to that number. So it's important that you have that.
Yes.
It won't be a card. for a lot of for older adults, it will be that white card with
Right,
the red
the old
letter.
way. Mhm.
Yeah. I think it was black letter numbers on it. But anyway, all that counts is that you have that. You shouldn't carry that with you.
Yes, you
Other
don't wanna
than
lose
that one opportunity when you're going to go see the person that's going to help you out, and then put
Yes.
it back in a safekeeping place. Do not carry it in your
It's
wallet.
not something that we would encourage someone to just walk around with.
You do not want that in your wallet for the rest of the year.
And if you're a newcomer as well, the date of your arrival. That's essential. They're going to ask you, so bring any evidence that you have of date of arrival, or make sure you have that date down pat. Your spouse's information, income, right, that you had brought into Canada, your time of arrival into Canada, as well as your spouse's for 2 years, any tax slips that you might have, any rent information that you have, and a direct deposit banking information. So just to keep that handy, because they're going to ask you for it, and you want to have a complete form. I talked about Ontario Works locations, like they have one in Ajax, they have in Clarington, they have in Whitby as well. If you're on Ontario Works, right, just allow your worker to know, I'm ready for my income tax. Most workers will let you know anyhow, right? Or call 311 and let them know that I'm ready to do my income tax, I need some help. You most likely would be eligible for the free clinic. A lot of our libraries do offer some tax clinics as well. You can call up your local library and just ask them, hey, I'm ready to do my taxes. Are you the location that is suitable for me to come to? And they'll guide you. Right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to
days
call
of the
all.
library just going for a book, those days are well over. Your library is a multi-service organization. And
It's amazing.
If they can't give you that, tell you that they're running a program, they might be able to redirect you appropriately. But don't rely on strictly the books. The books are good, but they do a lot more than just the books.
Also, if you're up in the North House, right? North House is available. That's on 2 Elgin Park Drive. Just give them a call as well. They do have a free tax clinic that runs, from March to December 19th. But this is the time, right? Give them a call and just say, I'm ready. Do I need to book an appointment, or do you have a day that people can just drop in, right? And they'll guide you, and they'll also let you know the other locations that might be most suitable for you.
That's awesome. So at the end, again, we're going to want you to have your pen and your camera ready, because we're going to put a list up for you. Always remember, you can call 311 with the regional municipality of Durham and get that information. Call your library, whatever it takes, or 1-800-O-Canada. But something comes out of this, and why it's another very, very important element of it is you get a notice of assessment off of filing this. And some people don't realize that long-term care rates are set by the government annually in June. And that is directly associated to what the cost is to the actual resident of the long-term care is based on the notice of assessment, their income. And it may be adjusted appropriate to their actual income. And if you don't file on time, that very, very important date of
April 30th.
April 30th, it could actually impact what is the coming year's costs for your family member, for yourself, whomever that you're engaged with in their residency in a long-term care. So it has a major impact. And of course, it's very important. A couple of little clues for you too, by the way. If you're putting in any cash register receipts, I suggest strongly that you photocopy them. You must keep these records for a minimum of 7 years. And what tends to happen with the cash register receipts is the ink will fade over time. So if you photocopy, put the receipt, the actual receipt, against the photocopy, so you have that record if you ever get audited, other than looking at a blank page 2 years from now where the inks all disappears. So thank you very much. Again, we're not experts, but we hope you shared some very valuable information. I know I learned something today. I hope you folks did from each other as well. We've had this great conversation. Jacqueline, thank you. Sharon, thank you. It's always great being here with you. And folks, we look forward to the next time you're here with us. Please come back and spend some time with us. And until then, enjoy spring.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.